welcome back to Sex, Brains and Money. Thanks for sticking with us on this boiling hot Tuesday morning. Now we're back with Adam Golding, who is a researcher into cognitive science and music. Thanks for joining us today, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So tell us a little bit first about, what is consciousness and why is it so difficult to study?
So consciousness is something which in one sense is very familiar, but in another sense is somewhat mysterious. It poses problems for science, according to a lot of people. But so consider a simple example. If you see something unusual, like suppose you see a purple cow somewhere, I don't know how it got purple, but someone can ask you, you were telling somebody a story about that cow, they can ask you, oh, you saw a purple cow, and maybe they misheard you, and they might say, wait a second, what was purple? And you say, oh, the cow. The cow was purple. There was a cow that was purple, and I saw it. And now compare that to a case where you had a dream of a purple cow, and you're telling someone a story about the dream, and they weren't quite paying attention. In that case, they might say, wait, what was purple again? If you say, oh, the cow was purple, they might justifiably say, no, hold on a second, you're a little confused there. The cow wasn't purple because there was no cow. There is no spoon, right?
Of course.
And so someone will say, okay, well, it was in your head, someone might say it was in your brain, the thing that was purple, because something clearly was purple. But even that is a bit of a confusion because, technically speaking, nothing in your brain was purple, at least not any more purple than usual. I mean, the brain's a little pinkish.
I guess
the color boundaries are, I'm talking a different sort of purple.
And it's interesting that whenever we have something that's a color it's not supposed to be, it's always purple. It's not like the cow was green or the cow was red. It's just purple cow.
Purple is also one of my favorite colors. So,
okay.
In kindergarten, I recall we did a survey of the class of what people's favorite colors were, and it was me and one other little girl in kindergarten who liked purple. No one else had purple as their favorite color. So since then, I've been a representative for purple.
Oh well, you're doing an excellent job of representing the cause.
So when you dream of a purple cow, there's nothing purple in your brain. The purple has to be essentially what we would say your mind, and we often run those two together, the brain and the mind. But there's a sense in which the purple is in the mind, something else is in the brain, and then there's questions about how those interact. But so consciousness is, at least this isn't exhaustive, but consciousness is the sort of thing that's purple when you dream of something purple, not your brain and not the world.
Fair enough. So how does all that connect to music? Like where are the connections in terms of how you're studying this?
So consciousness has often been suggested as something that's sort of a barrier to science, like a limit of where science can go to. And there's lots and lots of reasons why it's hard to study, but one sort of paradigmatic reason has to do with the fact that people think of conscious experience as being inherently private, that, well, you don't know me, you can't know what my experience is like, and they think of science as being this inherently public enterprise, where it's supposed to be this public thing, we all get together and we verify each other's data and we reproduce experiments. But technically speaking, or just truthfully speaking, science can only happen via conscious awareness in the first place. That if a bunch of scientists get together and they do a study and they read the dial and it says 7 or something like that, they have an experience of the visual experience of the dial saying 7, and if another lab gets together to verify that, they have to have a different but similar conscious experience because they're not going to have exactly the same experience. They're each looking at stimuli. For instance, if we both look at this stool, we both see the stool from different perspectives, and we manage to talk about it and sort of converge on a common representation of reality. Even though we all have slightly different conscious experiences, we just have to coordinate them in a certain way. Sometimes called intersubjectivity. But so really. It was all private to begin with. We're all just, science is always dealing in what philosophers call knowledge by testimony, stuff that other people told you. Even when you're relying on your own memory of your own personal, private, privileged, conscious experience, that's really just testimony that you're getting from yourself in the past, because your memory is fallible. It's just your memory is kind of telling you what you experienced once, and it could be wrong, who knows. So there's nothing. It's all just a continuum. There's no special barrier to studying consciousness in that particular sense. It's just a matter of coordinating our language and finding stimuli that can give us relevantly similar conscious experiences. And that's where music comes in, because music is a kind of stimuli which gives you conscious experiences like any other kind of stimuli, whether it's any of the arts. I mean, I'm more qualified to talk about the music case, but and one thing that's notable is that when you're studying anything, you don't just study any old phenomena in the world willy-nilly. You look for phenomena which are exceptional in a certain way that require explanation. For instance, if we were pigeon scientists, we were studying pigeons, and we'd never seen a pigeon fly, that would be a problem for our pigeon theory, just because we hadn't actually got the full range of stuff that we needed to explain in our experiences yet. We would have a theory of pigeon feeding and pigeon walking, but no theory of pigeon flight because we'd never even seen it happen before. Similarly, in the case of consciousness, if there were, suppose we'd never even seen purple before, we'd seen red and blue, we'd never seen purple, and we try to form a theory of color vision, but no purple objects have ever entered into our field of vision or anyone's field of vision, then we'd be missing a whole part of the story.
Okay.
Now, you notice that that's not as problematic as if we'd seen red, but we haven't seen every possible shade of red. So it's not so much, we don't have to have every possible conscious experience to have a systematic theory of it, but we need an idea of what the parameters of the space are. If you've never seen purple, you're almost missing an axis.
Okay.
And music is, I mean, the other arts do this as well. Arguably, I'm more susceptible to this in the case of music because I connect with music maybe a little better than the other arts. But music is unique compared to the sort of mundane stimuli in that it brings about conscious experiences that are, in my mind, very unusual. Especially, more experimental music does this more so, but there's a sense in which there's probably conscious experiences that no one has ever had, and they're not going to have until someone writes an appropriate piece of music to put someone in that very strange state of mind. I think it's no coincidence that there's an association between music, especially in the rock world, and drug use.
Of course.
There are both ways of entering what some scientists call an altered state of consciousness. Actually, at Roy Thompson Hall, there's this big quote that says, music is a safe kind of high, Jimi Hendrix.
Oh,
They're trying to appeal to the youth crowd down at Roy Thompson Hall.
Well, Jimmy was quite the genius musician himself, and unfortunately for the world, he enjoyed the unsafe kind of highs as well. And
Yeah,
that sort of cost us his musical genius far too early.
Exactly. So he maybe should have taken his own advice there,
Perhaps.
arguably.
But what does music bring to you in terms of experiences? You mentioned something about a peak experience, and that's something you can attain through music?
Yeah, so that's something that it's a term of art from music psychology. If you've ever listened to a piece of music where you've really been, I guess, in the zone, and you maybe get chills down your spine and that sort of thing.
It happens to me with jazz music all the time. That would definitely be.
Well, you're lucky to be able to get it reliably.
Well.
That's a very unusual experience. It's arguably similar to what Dr. Vervaeke talked about last time about the flow experience, so it may or may not be the same thing. And it's hard to study. It's hard to bring about in the lab because you can't in a laboratory and say like, oh, have the best experience you've ever had right now, go. Because because you have diodes hooked up to you, we want to study.
No pressure or anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so the more really good music, at least in my mind, is at the very least music which is efficacious, which is more reliable in bringing about a certain kind of experience. Some pieces of music, they only do it for you sometimes. There's other ones you're like, oh yeah, every time that song does it. And so it's a sense in which good pieces of music like that, they isolate phenomena that are hard to produce otherwise, that are also very unusual and interesting phenomena, which can help us study those aspects of the mind and get a sense of what the space is of possible conscious experience. Because I think we're probably still missing axes. I think there's emotions that no one's even felt yet because no one's written music strange enough to bring about that kind of experience. Well,
I'm sure that somebody will at some point, and hopefully, you'll be around to study it for us. So thanks for joining us today, Adam. I thought that was a really interesting segment, and I appreciate you coming on the show today. So we're just going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with Mohsin Bhujwalla from the LGBT Youth Line. Stay tuned.